The stars were aglow in the dark expanse of space, swirling in cosmic dances as Zira piloted her small, shimmering spacecraft through the galaxy. A stunning alien from the planet Luminara, with luminescent blue skin and silver hair that flowed like liquid starlight, Zira felt an insatiable curiosity for the universe. Her sharp violet eyes sparkled with excitement as she navigated through the nebula, a region where the fabric of space felt weaker, and she could almost feel the pulse of cosmic magic around her. "Faster, faster," she urged, her voice tinged with thrill. Her ship, Celestia, was built for exploration, but this journey crossed into the unknown. As she maneuvered around a glowing asteroid, she was utterly captivated by the sights and sounds that whipped past her. However, as she approached a swirling vortex of energy, Zira felt an unexpected tremor in the ship. The controls flickered uncertainly, throwing her off balance. Panic surged through her. "Celestia, not now!" she shouted. The luminous energy of the vortex began to tug at her vessel, pulling it in with overwhelming force. In a flash, there was a blinding flash of light, and Zira felt herself careening through a tunnel of iridescent colors. She squeezed her eyes shut, her heart racing faster than the ship as she braced for impact. With a bone-jarring crash, Celestia broke through the atmosphere and slammed into a quiet classroom just as the bell rang, signaling the end of a lesson. Students jumped to their feet, shrieking in surprise as Zira tumbled out amidst debris, her radiant form standing out starkly against the dull classroom. "What in the galaxy?" a startled teacher exclaimed, clutching a stack of books to his chest. Zira glanced around, wide-eyed, absorbing the environment, desks, chairs, and blackboards covered in strange scrawls. The humans were unlike any beings she had encountered. A mix of cautious curiosity and amusement washed over her. "Greetings. I am Zira, from Luminara. Where am I?" The silence in the room was palpable. The students gawked, their mouths agape. The teacher stammered, Earth, you've landed in geography class?" Intrigued by the oddity of the being surrounding her, Zira smirked. "Interesting. Simple structure for living." As she adjusted her shimmering attire, a brave student raised his hand. "Are you a alien?" "Yes," Zira declared with spirited enthusiasm. "What do you do here to reproduce?" Stunned silence echoed through the room, punctuated only by muffled snickers and wide-eyed disbelief. In that moment, Zira became the center of attention, a dazzling enigma, and little did she know, this was just the beginning of her adventure on Earth. The classroom buzzed with whispers, the students exchanging incredulous glances and hushed laughter. Zira's curious question lingered in the air, thick with tension and surprise. "Reproduce?" the teacher repeated slowly, his brain seemingly attempting to process the alien invasion and the topic brought to the fore. "Well, that's quite a personal question, don't you think?" Zira, oblivious to the embarrassment she had stirred, beamed with interest. "I am just here to learn. You humans have such fascinating rituals." The students began to ease up, their initial shock replaced by curiosity. They crowded closer, eager to hear more from this alien being with luminescent skin and an undeniable charm. Jake, a biology teacher in his late 20s, stood frozen at the front of the class. Quick-witted but introverted, he was as fascinated as he was apprehensive. He finally stepped forward, clearing his throat. Zira, let's maybe take this to a more private setting." "Fantastic," Zira exclaimed, her voice bright as she gestured for everyone to come along. "Where do we go?" Instead of guiding her to his office, Jake found himself at a local coffee shop, surrounded by the scent of roasted beans and the chatter of patrons. The bewildered students trailed along, smartphones drawn, documenting the moment for their social media. "So, Earthlings," Zira began with earnest excitement, "how do you reproduce?" The barista nearly dropped a latte as he overheard the question. Jake's face flushed. Let's talk about something else first, shall we? Like, what do you like about Earth?" Zira tilted her head, her silver hair glimmering in the bright cafe lights. "I find everything intriguing. The air is thick with emotion. I have never sensed so many feelings before." Jake exchanged glances with his friends, unsure whether to laugh or sympathize. "Maybe we can talk about human culture, music, art, things like that?" Zira puffed her cheeks, frustrated. Why do you avoid the topic? Is it a secret family ritual? Not exactly, Jake stammered, scratching the back of his neck. It's just a bit complicated. Zira's eyes narrowed, playful determination shining through. I want to understand humans, their pleasures and pains. I need to know. Show me. A flurry of discussions erupted around them as they donned their roles. Jake found himself both intimidated and entranced by the aliens' genuine eagerness to learn. That's it. We could try role-playing to figure it out. Zira's enthusiasm was infectious as they sat in a cozy booth, sipping steaming beverages that she discovered were made from roasted beans, an entirely new concoction to her sensory palate. Jake burst into laughter, albeit nervously. Role-playing? I don't think that's how you learn about reproduction. Why not? Zira countered, mischief sparkling in her violet eyes. Would it not be fun? Jake hesitated, caught off guard by her provocative approach. It was both charming and absurd. Well, how about we start with dating? That's a foundational part of human reproduction, right? Yes, let's simulate it. Zira's enthusiasm had reached new heights. What do I wear? What do I say? I don't think you need to. Okay, let's plan out a scenario. Jake pulled out a notepad, scribbling down ideas while his mind raced. We'll try a restaurant date, get to know each other, maybe talk about interests. Zira nodded slightly, her expressions mirroring genuine investment. And then, do we kiss? Isn't that part of the ritual? Jake spluttered, nearly spilling his coffee. Only if it feels right, I guess. Right, she exclaimed. We will create a connection then. After a lot of planning and enthusiastic role-playing, they sat across from each other. Zira, dressed in a subtle yet alluring ensemble, pulled from the local thrift store. The evening was set for a first date, and the cafe they chose buzzed with laughter and music. Let's begin, Zira declared, her confidence apparent as they entered the restaurant. Jake wrestled with the nervous knot in his stomach. He motioned for a seat, and as they settled, he could hardly focus on anything other than how stunning Zira seemed. She was radiant, drawing attention even in a simple dress. Tell me about yourself, Jake, Zira said, her voice melodic, laced with genuine curiosity. Well, I teach biology, he stammered, trying to keep it light. It's mostly about the science of life and organisms. I've always loved nature and exploring how things work. I want to learn about Earth's reproductive systems, she emphasized, leaning closer, her eyes locked onto his. Like, how do your kind connect? Jake could barely speak, transfixed by her presence. Well, people go on dates to get to know one another better, and sometimes they, pursue intimacy if they want to. Intimacy, Zira repeated, jotting down notes fervently. Is it like a deep connection? Kind of, Jake replied, his voice gaining steadiness. It involves trust and sharing yourself with someone. Zira remained keenly engaged. So, what's the next step? Touching? Touching can be part of it, if you both consent. Her brows furrowed. Consent? Yes, consent is when both people agree to something, Jake explained, blushing slightly. It's important to respect boundaries and comfort levels. Ah, boundaries, Zira echoed, making another note. I will write that down. As Aura absorbed the social intricacies, Jake felt himself opening up. With every passing moment, he found delight in her inquisitiveness, and the prospect of their experiment unnerved but thrilled him. After a few weeks of engagement with Earth's dynamics, Zira enthusiastically decided it was time for their most anticipated dating experiment. She pulled Jake eagerly down an eclectic street studded with neon lights, the hum of nightlife electrifying the air around them. Where are we going? He shouted over the din, laughter and music swirling together in a captivating cacophony. To a karaoke bar, she proclaimed, her bright eyes shimmering. It's a perfect place for expressions of excitement and emotion. Jake shrugged, intrigued yet daunted. He'd heard stories about karaoke's cringe-worthy moments. You're sure you won't feel overwhelmed? On the contrary, I long to experience the full range of human interactions, Zira replied, pulling him inside the vibrant venue where eager voices competed for attention. As they entered, the space pulsed with energy. A stage was set up with flashing lights, and patrons took turns showcasing their vocal prowess. Zira's excitement was contagious, infecting Jake with enthusiasm. "Let's go!" She tugged him toward the stage. "You sing first." "Me? No, I'll hum along," he protested, cheeks aflame in embarrassment. "Only if you want to engage in the connection," she challenged. Zira had a knack for mischief and persuasion that Jake couldn't resist. Resolutely, he stepped up to the mic, choosing an iconic 90s ballad. To Jake's surprise, the moment he started singing, Zira joined in, her voice harmonizing ethereally with his. The crowd turned to gawk, momentarily mesmerized by her otherworldly aura. The song transformed into a duet, weaving an emotional tapestry that captivated everyone in the bar. "See, you engage well," Zira beamed afterward, twirling with childlike joy. Once their song concluded, they returned to a table bursting with laughter. Jake could hardly believe how much fun it had been, even as he caught eyes from intrigued spectators. But as Zira turned her attention back to him, a serious gleam sparkled in her gaze. "Jake, that was exhilarating. You sang with emotion, but I noticed you feel nervous. You were afraid." "Yeah, that's true. I've always been shy," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Why?" Zira tilted her head, genuinely caring to understand the nuances of human emotion. "Humans are social beings. Is it feared rejection?" "Something like that," Jake admitted ruefully. They spent the rest of the evening exploring more of the bar's offerings, Zira's enthusiasm spilling over as she cheered on friends at the karaoke stage. Jake felt courageous in her presence, and their playful banter flowed freely. "Next, we will dance," Zira declared, dragging him back to the dance floor as a fast-paced tune echoed through the venue. As they swayed to the music, Zira marveled at this new element of human interaction. Laughing, she initiated a playful twirl, channeling not only excitement, but the essence of being carefree, a feeling she sought to capture. "Do humans usually get this close to one another when dancing?" she asked, her face inches from him. "Yes, it's a way to feel connected, to share energy," Jake said, breathless. Zira wrapped her arms around him in an exuberant, jumped embrace, her laughter lifting spirits around them. Each twirl brought their forms dangerously close, a magnetic pull of wonder between them. As the night unfolded, Zira turned the act of dancing into her observational study on human behavior. She delighted in every awkward move and rhythm breakdown, scribbling notes between songs. "Tell me more about how this embodies connection," she shouted across the pulsing music, her entity bursting with uncontained joy. This is fun," Jake laughed back, finding himself swept up in her infectious energy. Even as the night grew deep, a new level of comfort and connection bloomed between them. Little did they know, their experiment was only beginning to grow into something much deeper. After an exhilarating night filled with laughter and music, Jake felt lighter, almost transformed. Zira had taught him about joy and living in the moment, but it was the way she saw the world that made him reflect on his own life. "Let's continue tomorrow," she suggested, bounding into his apartment later that day. "I have so many more questions to ask about humans." The two settled onto his couch, surrounded by books and memorabilia that chronicled Earth's scientific wonders. Zira gazed wide-eyed at the eclectic assortment, especially intrigued by the nature documentaries playing quietly in the background. "Jake," she marveled, pointing to the screen, "is that how humans connect in nature?" "Sure, animals have their own social structures. Many go through mating rituals," he explained, the conversation drawing out relaxed smiles between them. "But humans are more complex. We build relationships on emotional foundations, trust, and sometimes even vulnerability." Zira listened intently, scribbling in her notebook. "Emotions. Do you mean feelings like joy, sadness, love, those kinds?" "Yes, and they are all intertwined," Jake replied, his gaze locking onto hers. "We can feel fear, joy, love, excitement. Each brings its own connection to someone else, and they can be beautiful, yet sometimes painful." Zira's eyes lit up. "I want to experience that kind of connection. Tell me about love, Jake. What do humans do to express it?" Jake pondered for a moment, recalling his own naive attempts at romance. "Love can be conveyed through words, actions, really any gesture that shows you care about someone. It can be as simple as holding hands or writing thoughtful letters. Letters, Zira exclaimed, her mind racing. Can we write one together? Well, sure, he replied cautiously. But what's this letter supposed to convey? Zira clapped her hands, exuding a rush of excitement. Let's phrase it to help inspire emotional connections. They worked together, each word chosen carefully as they penned an ornate letter that expressed mutual admiration. Jake felt warmth spreading in his chest as they laughed and crafted elegant phrases. Zira summoned her curiosity, her expression suddenly dropping. What if someone doubts a connection? What stops humans from becoming intimate? Fear can play a large part, Jake admitted, his tone turning heavier. People often feel insecure about their worth or fear vulnerability. Fear? Like your nervousness last night? Zira prodded gently. Jake rubbed the back of his neck, biting his lip. Yes, I've always struggled with that. Do not fear me, she comforted sweetly. I am here to learn. We are creating a bond. Jake felt an unexpected surge of gratitude wash over him. Yeah, you're right. It's like I'm opening up for the first time in a long while. Zira smiled, her eyes shining with understanding. Then let us continue to explore this depth together. As the days turned into a whirlwind of experiences, Zira's enthusiasm for human culture propelled them into deeper territories of vulnerability, exploration, and confusion. Yet with each encounter, Zira remained undeterred in her goal to understand what truly connected humans. One evening, as they strolled through a bustling street festival, Zira took in puzzles of color and sound that engulfed the crowd. Everywhere she looked, Earthlings shared laughter and intimacy, while she felt increasingly perplexed. Jake, I've witnessed many connections, yet I sense a divergence, she whispered urgently. Some humans seem so close, yet others are distant. Jake looked around, understanding her observation. You're right. Some people open up easily, others not so much. It's difficult to navigate feelings sometimes. Is that why you've shown hesitation? Zira asked, glancing back at him, her tone softening. With me? Jake hesitated, his heart twisting in his chest. They say history shapes us, he began. Past experiences have made me hesitant when it comes to intimacy. I've been hurt before, and it's hard to fully trust someone. Zira's luminous clarity dimmed as she observed the emotion in his eyes. Emotion can be confusing. I witness humans acting out of insecurity. It often leads to false connections. Yeah, it can, Jake admitted, a pang of introspection echoing through him. But not everyone feels that way. Sometimes love brings clarity and joy. As Zira processed these truths, an unease settled over her. She instinctively moved close to Jake as they stopped to watch a couple share a tender moment. A soft murmur of insecurities clawed at her heart. Would they ever reach that level of understanding? Suddenly, she spotted a group of friends laughing and exchanging gifts. There was a sense of celebration and love filling the air, and she felt cast adrift. Perhaps what I see between those humans is not meant for me, Zira murmured wistfully. Zira, don't say that. Jake grabbed her arm gently, leveling her with intense sincerity. You have the ability to connect, just as I do. It's just different. Just then, a sudden wave of jealousy arose in Zira. How can I truly understand? If there are so many barriers, how can we bridge them? Just be yourself, Jake comforted, attempting to pull her back from that darkened corner. Don't define yourself by those around you. Let's discover what makes us unique. But doubt shrouded her heart. The more she witnessed the emotional connection between humans, the heavier her longing weighed on her chest. Finally, the realization struck her. She was feeling intimately, as Jake described. Perhaps she had formed a deeper connection with him that neither could yet articulate. I wish to sharpen my understanding, but I feel like I am failing, Zira confessed, holding back sorrow. You're not failing. You're learning, and that process takes time, Jake said softly. Let's figure this out together. No need to rush. Zira nodded slowly, letting his encouragement wash over her as warmth settled in her heart. They strolled quietly now, contemplating how their experiences molded the unique bond they had begun to forge amid their differences. As the days wore on, Jake noticed a shift in Zira's demeanor. The fluctuating joy was replaced with determination and resolve. We need to do something dramatically human, Zira proclaimed one evening, her energy revitalized. Something meaningful to showcase our connection, a grand gesture. Jake raised an eyebrow, both excited and apprehensive. What do you mean? Like a surprise party? Even better, Zira grinned. A public declaration of feelings. You've mentioned grand displays of connection before. Let us create one for ours. Jake's heart raced with the idea, contemplating all the cultural influences flooding through his mind. But what does that even entail? Let's collect expressions, letters, flowers, music, celebrate our unique union, Zira extolled, her enthusiasm contagious. When's the next community gathering? It's in a week, he replied, feeling a mix of apprehension and excitement. It's a festival of lights, a celebration of connection. Suddenly, inspiration struck. What if we prepare a performance, share our journey with everyone? As they brainstormed, they spent the next several days putting together their creative piece, an elaborate mixture of dance, poetry, and storytelling. The performance mirrored the emotional journey they had shared, interwoven with witty comedic references to their role-play experiences. On the day of the festival, the vibe was electric, the air rich with anticipation. Colorful lanterns illuminated the festival grounds, filling the space with beauty. Zira's eyes shone as she took in the sights, the melody of laughter floating through the air, making her feel warm. Jake stood backstage beside her, his heart racing with nerves. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, glancing toward the bustling crowd gathered in anticipation. "As ready as I'll ever be," Zira grinned, her confidence unwavering. "Let us go, break boundaries." Once their names were announced, they stepped into the light, undeterred by eyes fixated on them. Jake began, reciting a heartfelt poem he had penned, intertwining his journey of self-discovery along with Zira. Her eyes glimmered with excitement as he performed, the words flowing from him in rhythms of honesty and emotional vulnerability. Today, we unite cultures unlike any other, a tale where understanding conquers fear. Each stanza painted a vivid picture of their adventures as the audience leaned in, rapt with attention. As Jake concluded the poem, Zira seamlessly joined him on stage for their rhythmic dance. Together, they swayed, moving in unison, a spectacle of fluid motions, the melding of their unique attributes on full display. The blend of human and alien forms celebrated the beauty of connection, their hearts becoming one with each beat. When the dance shifted to the finale, they froze in an intricate pose, encircled by radiant lights that flickered like stars. The crowd erupted into applause, cheers mingling with shock and awe, their connection resonating through the air. After the theatrics, hand in hand, Zira turned to Jake, her expressions radiating joy. "Do you feel it? How each being connects?" "I do. This is part of our bond," he replied, his excitement echoing her own. Following the performance, the crowd surrounded them, eager to celebrate their unique display. Jake felt a wave of warmth as he realized how impactful their connection had been, not just for them, but for others seeing the beauty in cross-cultural exchanges. Zira exulted, her heart singing as she realized they had forged connections beyond what she ever deemed possible. "Jake, I am so grateful for this union, our unique connection." Suddenly, she leaned in closer, her sparkling eyes reflecting sincerity. "May I, if the connection feels right?" Urged by curiosity and emboldened by emotions blooming in his chest, he nodded, giving her consent. She gently leaned in, bridging the distance, their lips connecting in an embrace that ignited electric sensations between them. The crowd erupted into applause, but all Jake could focus on was the magic of that moment, the thrumming pulse of connection as he kissed Zira. As they pulled away, laughter and cheering swirled around them, but time seemed still for Jake and Zira. The kiss had been an electrifying connection, a beautiful embodiment of their journeys together, and an acknowledgement of the depth of their feelings. Zira beamed, joy radiating from her being. "This is what you mean by intimacy, by sharing emotions that transcend the physical." "Exactly," Jake replied, still catching his breath, overwhelmed with the beauty in that moment. "Your human customs appear quite remarkable," Zira exclaimed, "but they also carry great weight." In the waiting aftermath of their intimate encounter, Jake felt more connected than ever before. I think I've been afraid of vulnerability, but you've taught me the beauty in allowing ourselves to be open. Zira nodded, her gaze softening. Fear can be an enormous barrier. On Luminara, we convey emotions differently, but here we uncover a spectrum of experiences that enrich us. As they stepped from the stage, their hearts intertwined, they were met with warmth from the crowd. Friends rallied around, showering them with praise. Jake's earlier apprehension faded, melting into excitement, as Zria engaged the audience, asking thought-provoking questions about their feelings. "Tell me, humans, how do you express love?" Zira prompted the crowd, her genuine interest drawing them close. The responses poured forth, celebrating the tender expressions of affection from around them. Laughter and storytelling mingled with the festival's colorful atmosphere, creating a tapestry rich in connections that transcended across beings. Jake stood back, observing Zira as she encouraged others to share their emotions, affecting those around her effortlessly. Her journey had blossomed into a celebration of openness, a journey that started with a question about reproduction but deepened into the heart of interpersonal connection. "I never imagined we would come this far," Jake murmured, delight in his eyes. "Me neither. You humans possess a remarkable ability to connect," Zira replied, her voice earnest. "I wish to further explore this depth with you." In that moment, Jake realized they had achieved something extraordinary. They had not just exchanged humor and knowledge, they had forged a bond that spanned across two worlds. As the festival wound down, leaving glimmers of light in its wake, Zira turned to Jake, her presence radiant. "So, what comes next, dear human?" Jake leaned in, resting his forehead against hers, a promise echoing between them. "I guess we'll keep learning together. After all, each day brings something new." "Yes, an eternal adventure of connections in which I shall understand humanity," Zira proclaimed with joy. Together, they fit into the night, hand in hand, ready to explore whatever awaited them, two beings from vastly different worlds, embarking on a shared journey, learning the intricacies of love, understanding, and connection with every step.